and welcome to the DM's Book Club, a weekly book club podcast where we talk about some Dungeons and some Dragons and discuss how we might include it in our role-playing campaigns. With me, as always, is my erstwhile book club co-host, Hamilton. Hello, Hamilton.
Hello.
Most honourable borough warden.
Thank you. I'll take that. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I haven't got metallic hands.
No,
but,
true.
No, true. But yeah, I'll take it. I mean, that's all right. Matron?
Matron, yeah. Well, I don't know if that's any better. Oh, and how are you doing, Hamilton? Apart from me just surprising you with new epilogues.
Oh, exactly, yeah. I was not ready for that. Sorry. Yeah, I'm good. We're coming up for Dragon Meet. I'm getting postage out.
Yeah. You're doing your videos.
Doing videos, yeah. Just did another kit bashing video that went out, and as ever, it does this weird thing on YouTube where it's like, I'm going to show it to 1,000 people. Oh, they didn't like it. I'm going to show it to 100 people. Everyone watched it. I'm going to show it to 1,000 people. They kind of liked it. I'm going to show it to 100 people. No. And then it does this weird dance, and then and sometimes it will then go, oh, I've hit it, and go up. So it's like you don't do anything, or it goes down the hill. So yeah, that's what's going on in my life.
As someone who just literally gets their audio, puts like a static image and a waveform on it, and then puts it on, I never even bothered to look. Every so often I'll get an email from YouTube that goes, hey, you got 30 new subscribers this month, and I'm like, good for them. They enjoying content. I had one, it was so great. I did a Too Long Didn't Read stream, and somebody said like, hey, where's the last part of the Fairy Mound coming on YouTube? And I was there like going, what? Okay.
People care. People want to know. I haven't listened to that one yet, mate. So I want to know what happens.
Oh, mate.
I mean, you gave me a bit of a spoiler, but
yeah, but that's a different kind of story.
No, it's a fun one. Yeah, I had a milestone that I missed, which I was quite annoyed about, and it's probably a song that no one actually really knows, which is the song 2525. Do you know that song?
No, I don't know that song.
2525. It was a weird like 60s hippie song, and then his name's gone right out of my head. I can see his face.
Good.
Oh my gosh, he's like an...
Does he have a beard?
He looks like Liam and Noel Gallagher, but he's like the cooler version of them.
Well...
Oh my God, he did the song Stellify. Oh, Jesus.
I think you're going to offend quite a lot of people from Manchester if you just say they're cooler than Oasis. So.
I think he's also from Manchester, that's why I mean it.
Cooler than...
Ian Brown.
Oh, Ian Brown, yes.
He is also from Manchester, right?
You're asking the wrong person, even though I am from
Warrington,
Manchester.
yes.
Oh, Warrington, there you go. Close enough. Yeah, that's fine. We'll include him in the north
somewhere.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? He does look a little bit like Liam and Noel.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, that's sort of the shaggy hair of the 90s. Yeah.
Stone Roses. Anyway,
close enough. So you missed that milestone of 2525. Then is that what you say?
I missed that. I missed the milestone. I was on 2524. I then wanted to copy it and do the little quote from it, and then I missed it.
Well,
there you go.
Hopefully, you'll do another cover of, I don't know, year 3000.
They do in that song. It does go in the year 35. So I've just got to wait till then.
You're gonna wait then. There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
Sorry, it was so not useful.
Oh man, I've been doing social stuff as well. Like you said, podcast zone, Dragon Meet's coming up, and it's very interesting because obviously with a big exodus from X and Twitter and all that sort of thing, it's so interesting now to have like you put stuff out and people go, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Who are you?" People actually now finding the tweets now. It's and thankfully everyone is very nice about it, but it is a bit like, are you coming to Dragon Meet? You don't need to comment on this if you're not coming. Yeah. It's fine. Leave me alone.
Yeah, Blue Sky's weird now as well. That is a whole thing because like I was very late to the party. I know everyone sort of exited and went there quite early, and I was like, nah, I'm just going to do Threads and Instagram. And then I was like, oh, everyone's like keeps talking about Blue Sky. I'll jump on. I was like, oh, everyone's here. They've all been here for ages. And
like a big party, like, hey!
Yeah, it's like, and I was like, oh, I didn't know everyone was here. Hello. Thanks for telling me, people. I think people did tell me, like, do you want a Blue Sky thing? Funny. I was like, nah, I'm not interested. I doubt it's got anything going on. And then I like go there and it's like, everything's fucking going on.
That is so funny. Well, it's so true because I've been trying to do a little bit of Threads and podcasts and Mastodon is slow. There is a community in Mastodon for RPG stuff, but every so often it just there's no one there. And then you post something and they go, I really like this. And you're like, who are you? That's it's all the hashtags and stuff. And Threads doesn't have hashtags. They have one tag. And I'm just there like,
I know. And it's like it does, and then you get so many like Instagram reposts, and it takes some of your Instagram stuff, and that's weird. And the only thing I liked about it is it kept your followers, so you kept your follower list, and as much of like who I am following, because I'm like, I've forgotten everyone's name. I can't remember
people's
everyone's
names change, pictures change. Yeah,
exactly. So like, it's quite useful. But anyway, yeah, it's been nice to go back on there and do the talking with the words.
Yeah, I like the talking with the words, and it's still shilling stuff, obviously, like DM's book club and all that sort of thing. But at least it's like people actually go, oh yeah, I put out a Where episode from Sunday, and people were like, I listened to this and quote tweeted it, and I was like, oh, quote skeeted or whatever the term is now, and I'm like, oh, somebody did listen. Oh, that's all right. Yeah,
that's cool.
I'll join in on that. So yeah,
that's nice. No, that's the thing. I just like, well, yeah, because Instagram, you put a picture up and you get likes, and you occasionally get the comment, but it's not a lot of the time. And then at least in that, it's like, oh, I can have a discussion again where you can back and forth with people,
very
which is what
visual. Yeah.
So it's nice. We did bury the lead.
Yes.
What are we talking about today, Fiona?
Our topic of choice. We are returning back to the Dark Elf trilogy. We started so long ago. I think at the beginning of the year, did we not? We are back for episode 2, Exile, by R.A. Salvador. We're going to go back into the story of Drizzt and sort of the origin story. So so that's what we're sort of doing. This is our second actual book club.
It is actually, isn't it? Weirdly, for something that calls itself the DM's book club, we've done 2 books now.
We've done actual 2 fiction books, and I'll be honest, it's been a little while since you remember, folks have listened to the last one, which was Homeland. I listened to the first one, I really enjoyed it, and I went straight on to Exile, and then we were going to record Exile ourselves at some point. I was talking about it, and then obviously life got in the way. I moved, the usual gubbins, and so then I'd forgotten, and so I've just re-listened to it in preparation for this episode, and God, it's really good. I forgot how much I forgot how much I really enjoyed the whole sort of world and the setting that has been set up. And like I said, I don't know too much about drow culture or anything like that, other than the usual sort of like big tropes of like women are in charge and it's evil, but like even the bits of like political stuff goes on that you see in this book, not as much as maybe the previous book. It's still pretty like tense. It feels so Game of Thronesy in that sort of sense of like these people, these great houses, are like, well, I have Lol's favor and you don't, and that's really bad for you. And you're like, oh no.
It's very true, and like it's probably some of the most like there's less of it in this one, but there are some of the most devilishly like good bits in this one for the political bits, like the beginning, the relationships with Breg and Darth, the relationships with Banray and
Hannett. That whole scene right at the beginning where you have Malice going to Banray and then Hannett, and having this almost like this trio of people having a council about what to do about this big war between the 2 houses. It's so tense because you're like, well, Madame Malice is like, well, she's at fault. Cinefay is at fault. Ha. And it's like, no, it is all little like again the pulling of threads
because you were meant to kill them and this one's not dead.
And it's like, what is going on? And everyone's like,
and then John Axel's just like freaking making all the money in the background.
He's great. I love John Axel. Obviously, I know him from Waterdeep Dragon Heist and all that sort of thing. So like the fact that he makes an appearance here and is just like the coolest person ever, just wanders in. It's like, he always knows like what, like, oh well, I'm going to put this to my advantage. It's always about him, and it's just so smooth. But it doesn't come across as like a big ego at all. It's the way he suits every situation as a business meeting. It's just really cool.
Oh yeah, he's playing chess whilst everyone's playing checkers. He's definitely like he is one of my favorite parts of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and the person that what I enjoyed playing him as in it, and I don't know if I mentioned it at the time, I probably did, was like he's not like an antagonist like the rest of them. He is going to be the person that's going to go to them, make a deal, and he might screw them over at the end if it suits his purpose, but that's what he's there to do. He's like, he will go there to further his cause, which is he wants to be one of the lords of the Master Lords, and that's his kind of like his purpose is to get what's it called up in the Luskan, like on the map as well, part of the council. He was so much fun to play because he would just be friends with I made him like friends with the people, and I'll give you these things and do this, and come on my party boat and enjoy this amazing thing, and like have like because he has a party boat and like here's like canapes and like wining and dining them. Treating them like royalty a bit, so that they were, and they're like, oh, this guy's a nice guy, and he's like, he's just
so nice. But even in my head, I'm like, but he's clearly after something.
Exactly.
But it's interesting because obviously he's apart from obviously Drizzt, obviously, who is the protagonist of this, he is the most sort of outlandish drow. Like, people do not trust him because he's bald, for example. He has a certain style. He wears bright colors, and everyone else is like, but he's good at his job, and we need him. He's the fixer. So I find that really interesting that compared to Drizzt, who obviously is the exile in this particular story, like they're still using Jarl Laxle as like they don't trust him because he's male, he's bald, he's just so different,
He's like the anti-Drizzt, Drizzt, you know what I mean? Because he like comes in, he still stands outside of their social structures in the sense of like he kind of puts a wedge against them in the sense that he is a man in charge and is like playing the game and not being subdued by them and stuff like that. But in the same sense, they need him, and they revere him, but then hate him for that. Whilst Drizzt just shuns them completely, and they want to like take him out.
I will say, I didn't say at the top of the episode, there will be spoilers for Exile, just right at the beginning.
By the way, yes.
It's just in general, because Jarl Laxle does play quite a key part towards the end of the story as well.
He does. That's when it gets really good.
Oh yeah, it's again. This is the thing. Obviously, you will have to have read or listened to Homeland before this, and obviously you can listen to our discussion if you would like to. Obviously, we would love you to. But this particular story of Exiles takes place about 10 years after the events of Homeland, where Drizzt has left the confines of the not the Underdark, but away from the city of Menzoberranzan, and is just outside, and is just surviving in the wilderness of the Underdark. Which, again, I hadn't really. I guess I know the Underdark is bad, but it's like from us reading stuff and like learning about certain creatures there, and obviously about Underdark cities, it is so bad to be outside and to live like that for 10 years with all you've got is your swords, your own wits, and your magical kitty cat. It's
only's there for, and it's so sad because the beginning is like it tries to really portray that loneliness, doesn't it? And it's like he only gets to bring Guenhwyvar out every half day, every other day. Basically, isn't that right? I think I've got that right. So he can have, because he has to have a day off, and then he has him for I think 12 hours or 8 hours. I think.
I just love the idea the cat goes, no, well, the contract says I'm not coming out for another day and a half.
He's got to sleep for three-quarters of what he's awake.
Gotta go and head out. Yeah, and you know what? That's the thing I was going to really bring up in this. I think the last book obviously talked a lot about, had a really interesting sort of relationship, like father-son relationship that obviously we knew as the audience, but the particular people didn't necessarily know until right at the end. And here is something that, again, I'd never really seen in a fantasy book about, adventurers, is this idea of loneliness and this idea of being alone and on the track as a wanderer, and then being fueled by what Drizzt calls the hunter, the rage, because that's the only thing that will keep you safe, because one wrong move and you will be dead, and being then going into a society and then trying to uncouple those thoughts and that sort of flight or fight response. It was just so fascinating because I'd never really read something like that. It was very succinct, but also like it felt very powerful. Like again, loneliness is that the key thing. It's the idea of male loneliness, and like the biggest sad thing about like I've lost, maybe will lose the ability to speak because I don't speak to anyone, so I might not be able to bring Guenhwyvar out, and I will lose my only friend. And
yeah, that's pretty. It gets pretty dark like that. It's really, and it comes up again a couple of times, and he puts himself in similar situations in the previous but next trilogy, as in like the first trilogy they made, but which is subsequent to this in terms of
the whole of
chronology.
Is it the Hall of Champions, or no? That's not what it is.
Yeah, the oh geez,
sorry, I made you think of a different book now.
The Champions of the Hall. The Champions of the Hall.
I was so close. Hall of Champions.
It's
Champions
Fellowship of the Ring, but Champions of the Hall.
Ring of the Fellowship.
Yeah, exactly. Ring of the Fellowship. He is alone for a couple of periods during that, and he kind of recalls these times back then. When you read that out of sync, which I actually read them in this order, so in the chronological order, so it did make more sense to me. But it's quite, he mentions those moments because he's back on alone for a bit, which is a bit of a spoiler. It's not a major spoiler because it's going to happen, but these books definitely for the time do hit on a lot of topics that you don't find enough, weirdly still, even do you in books.
I'm sure you do, like young adult books perhaps, but like
I mean in D&D I'm talking about, sorry, not in like books.
No, but I'm even thinking, like, for example, I'm thinking of like, stuff like Harry Potter, even like Hunger Games, that sort of young adult stuff. There was bits, parts of it where it talks about like people being on their own. But I think the idea of male loneliness and people not being able to talk to each other and just like and isolation. And I don't know whether it may be because you and I have both been through, I don't know, a pandemic, and maybe had to be in our houses for a long time and having that feeling of isolation. I don't know. I just felt like, wow, I've never really read anything about that sort of thing. And just the idea of being, because they always say like, oh, well, what if you play like an outcast or somebody that lives on their own, a hermit in D&D? It doesn't really go into the idea, again, why would it? Because it's supposed to be about heroes and making like adventures and all that sort of thing. It doesn't really touch on like the down thing of like, you're on your own. And it can be, I just think that loneliness, it just really hit home. And I really felt for Drizzt to the point where, like, he's helping out some Myconids, like defeating like some sort of creature, the basilisk, and hears some gnomes and follows them. And he's like, oh, well, these gnomes, they've got a whole city stuff.
Yeah, and he's like, it's so sweet because he just kind of follows them because you can tell it's kind of just like their company, just the fact that he's close to them, and then he acts as their sort of like defenders, and in a sense, he sort of like kind of wants to just help them in that sense. And then the way he sneaks into the town, and doesn't feel like he would be welcome, and then they don't give him the nicest welcome in the end either, which is kind of a shame.
Which again, because of the relations between the Snurf Neblin and the Drow makes sense. But even that's the second time he goes in. He gets the courage to go in. The first time he just sort of falters and goes, no, I can't do it. And then the door shuts and he goes, oh, I've missed my chance. And I'm just there going like, oh, how often have we felt that going, oh, should I? And then the chance goes and you go, well, that's it. Oh, and then he just falls back into this this depressiveness, and then only by chance when he sees him again goes, I can't lose this chance, I must go in. It's the only way. If anything, it's like that sort of, maybe this is me going too meta with this, but it's like, I need to ask for help.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
And to go to people and be like, if I die, I die.
Yeah, he doesn't want to live that way anymore, and it's just like, this is my only option, and if it's the end, well, what have I got to lose kind of feeling, isn't it?
I think it's interesting because the Snurf Neblin obviously are like, oh, but this is not how drow normally act. But also, it's that sort of thing where I don't think normal adventurers would actually act like that either. Like, especially if you're on guard and they're in these Underdark cities, which are supposed to be little bastions against the darkness as well. So when the Snurf Neblin take him in and like question him, going like, no, you must be here for something, and he can't speak their language. He struggles to just a few words, and then he only reacts and he tries to separate himself, the hunter self, who's like wanted to react, go, no, that's my little Guenhwyvar statue, I need that, that's my friend. It's like, because it could be seen as different things, and it just felt so powerful. And like I said, I just not really, I know it sounds so silly to be like, I've never really thought of it like that, but it just felt, when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, this is actually quite sad. This could end either way, and he's just so sad and just needs a hug.
I'm gonna break it to you. Sojourn is gonna be even sadder.
Oh no, don't say that.
Yeah. It's sadder, then it gets happier, but it's why this, reading it chronologically, and this is what I'd say for anyone who's gonna go into this, I recommend it because it makes, when he becomes a part of the companions of the Hall and he gets to the 10 towns and he has this found family, so much more worth it, because you've gone through, and then you don't see him as just like, oh, I'm the edgelord.
I'm the edgy
if
elf.
You read the first three written as out of chronological, but in sequence when they came out, he's just like, I'm an edgelord. Ooh, you can't ask about my past. Ooh, I'm so dark and mysterious, and I'm like sitting in the corner, and I'm so cool. And you're like, it's a bit of that. But when you know this, you're like, oh, well, duh. Been through the shit, and he wants to just enjoy sitting up at the mountains looking out on his own, because he just needs to take it in, and the fact that he's free and he's got friends, and why he's so protective of his friends and stuff like that. So it makes us so much more of the later books because of it.
Yeah, to have that sort of that bit of backstory to a character. And I really like that. Again, it makes me think of like, because again, I know people like playing edgelord characters, myself included, but having that little bit of human edge to them. I think I've told the story many times before, but I remember we were playing some sort of game, a one-off once, and we could suggest things to our other players, and someone was playing, oh, I'm going to play a big, strong person, but they're not very intelligent. They're just like, they go with the flow. They're like, blah, 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 that sort of thing. And I was like going, okay, you get doing these sort of the big, low intelligence body person. Okay. And I was like, what if in their backstory, they loved theatre and all they want to do is put on a play? And that just changed the whole dynamic of what they were doing, because I just wanted to be like, I get the trope of like someone being a big, strong, like dum-dum, but at the same time I was like, but what do they love? Do they love being a big, strong dum-dum? No, I bet they like they maybe can't read all of Shakespeare, but they like doing monologues, you know. I just remember saying to that person, they're like, oh, and I was like, yeah, there you go. That's the backstory. That's just something that instantly we go, I like this person because there's more to them than just how they look, you know. So that's what I was thinking about when I was looking at this, listening to the story of Drizzt and how he goes from sadness, darkness, and then comes out into the light a little bit. You know?
No, it's true. But yeah, going out into the light of the real world is more dangerous and horrible. So look forward to it.
I mean, I'm going to have to bring up the big sort of undead elephant in the room. I
was waiting till we're going to get back to what's been happening back at Matron Malice. It's the classic descent into madness in some respects, but it's great.
Yeah, it's very much the House Hadarkin of Dune. That sort of like, I must have total control. And this idea that Matron Malice has so much power, but because her youngest son dissented and left, their house is seen as weak and they don't have Lol's favor. So then she's like, I know what I'll do. After this sort of like this forced agreement to have to house House Hanet's sort of like oldest matron as like her fake oldest daughter, which is such an insult because Matron Malice, as soon as she's off, then she's going to take over. So it's just like, ooh, that's not going to go down well.
And also, it's that like thing that there's a Hunet that's still alive, so they can always use that against them at any time, which is really, because if you want to destroy a house, you have to destroy the whole house. So having that there acts as like a reminder generally of like your failure to destroy the whole of the house.
Yeah. Then there's this talk about like how, because there's a moment where they're sending out groups of the house to go and find Drizzt. There's a little bit of a confrontation with one, I believe it's the oldest sister. Is it Breeza?
Breeza, yeah.
Breeza and Divin, and who's
dickhead.
Yes.
That's what we called him last time.
Yeah, he's just such a dickhead. Oh, I hate him.
He's just a dickhead.
But again, a really interesting like fight between like oldest sister and youngest son. Like he cuts off two of her fingers, and you're like, oh, and so she gets like two cool fingers. I wish they'd had more to do with that, perhaps, but it is what it is. But then they can't capture him. He's still out there, and he's still defying him. So they go, right, here's something we're going to do. We're going to regain Lol's favour. We're going to perform this ceremony, get a handmaiden of Lolfin to agree to do a Zincarlel, I think that's what it's called. Basically reanimating a body, like do a sacrifice, reanimate a body that's like a wraith, and her sole purpose is just to go and kill Drizzt. And of course, the only person that could possibly match Dritz's sort of swordsmanship is, of course, Zaknathane, the old house master of ceremonies, that sort of old house weapons master, who, of course, we know is Dritz's father, which you're like, what the actual fuck? This is amazing. But even then, there's trickery and maliciousness happening with that, because at first you think they're going to sacrifice the current sort of like house guy, Risen, the sort of like the new paramour, as it were, of Matron Malice, actually turns at the last minute and kills Cena Fey, her new daughter. And I'm just there like, oh! And the handmaiden was like, oh, treachery, nom, 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 yes.
It was so good. It was such a good move. That was to get the...
Get them to do the ceremony.
Yeah, that was it.
Because then, unfortunately, Reza, for whatever reason, is like, well, I guess I'll test Zaknathane's new abilities of an undead warrior, and gets cut to ribbons.
Completely decimated, just like...
What a waste of a good part. Like, even I'm just like going like, don't touch him. He's dead.
Sean Bean played that character.
Absolutely. It's like, it has one line, goes, huh.
Says one line amazingly, then dies.
And then you have this sort of, for the rest of the book, you have this sort of like POV of Zaknathane and his new sort of controlled, like going to these places, like following the trail of Drizzt. And then, because Drizzt has shown kindness in these places where he's sort of like maybe deceived goblins, going like, you shouldn't come here, go away, like to persuade them to go away. Whereas Zaknathane goes in and just murders everything. And it's just such a contrast to see how it changes. Because obviously in the first book, Zaknathane is like, has this big sort of like men on the outside, but then it is, treats Drizzt as a son and treats him with kindness, and like says, you can't show this out.
Teaches him not to like, he doesn't like the whole situation of drow society that's about blood for blood and everything like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh. It's really hard because that's the other thing. There's a sort of like similar loneliness in him, and and like it sort of mirrors it, but there's also the sense of when he I don't know if it's going too far ahead, but there's parts that even happen earlier where you can hear him, like parts of his subconscious, like the original like spirit of him coming through, and his like, he already had that inner turmoil in the first book, and then for it to be like completely out of his control. Like before, it was out of his control because he had to fit within drow society.
Yeah.
Now it's even further out of his control as he's being completely manipulated by Matron Malice.
Yeah, which is terrifying because yeah, again, that same sort of comparison. Like obviously, Matron Malice controlled the household in the previous one, and now is still controlling him even after death, forcing him to do all this stuff. And like, there's times where he's trying to make decisions of like, well, Drizzt was here, so I should wait here. And Matron Malice goes, no, you must push on and find him. And that, again, the cruelty and that her willingness to like, you need to find it, means that several opportunities get missed, or it moves the story on. Like, you know, they come back to camp at one point, and obviously Zaknafein has caught up with them, but is no longer there. So they're like, oh well, someone's trashing it. Well, we need to go and hide somewhere. We need to go and move somewhere else. And it's just so interesting. So there's the missed opportunities, those missed moments. If you just wait, and because that's the thing, Zaknafein is a true hunter. He's a true survivalist, a master of weaponry. So he knows how Drizzt works, but he having to go against someone who's like, no, go find them now. It's like, can't do anything about it. It's just, yeah, I just find that really interesting. Like, he obviously knows how to do this stuff, but he can't do it because of the will of Matron Malice. It's just,
exactly. Yeah, it's pretty awful, and it gets even worse at the end, as it does.
Oh, yeah, it's fucking hard at the end.
I was going to say, like, because even at that time, we haven't talked maybe enough about Blingdenstone as much because
great name.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But whilst we're there, whilst Zaknafein's out there following these tracks of Drizzt, you've got Drizzt in there, and he got captured, as we said, and then he uses his memory of the back from the first book where he saved the Svirfneblin by trying to pretend that he was dead, didn't he, at first? No, that was the elf girl, wasn't it?
The little elf girl.
With this one, he tried to let him go free, but then Dinin came along and chopped his hands off because he said, we got to leave him to leave a message so one person's alive to tell them. And they said, if we're going to do that, we chop his hands off. Yeah. And that's why when Fiona mentioned that I was the
most honourable borough warden.
Yeah, borough warden. Yeah, he is that. He's given that name, which he doesn't really like either.
Yeah, Belwar Disengulp is the character.
Belwar Disengulp, yeah. Drizzt goes to live with him, and they have a lovely relationship and become really great friends.
Again, almost like a father-son kind of relationship as well. And what's interesting is Belwar Disengulp has not been able to go out with the rest of the Svirfneblin to do mining stuff, to patrol or anything like that. Even though they keep going, oh, well, most honourable Borough Warden, we would love to have you along. And he's like, oh, they're just saying that. But look at me. And obviously it's most into his hands, which are fucking terrifying tools. If you see artwork of Belwar, just a big old hammer and then like a scythe type, like a pickaxe on one, you're like, okay, maybe you can't, I don't know, make dinner, but you could at least, like, I don't know, chop through a wall.
Yeah, exactly.
But it gets to a point where Drizzt realizes the reason he doesn't go out is because he blames himself for what happened those 10 years ago, that he led his party of Svirfneblin, who then got killed. And then Drizzt, there's a really interesting conversation between Drizzt and Belwar. Said Drizzt, well, I led my team, so actually I'm at fault and we're at, and that idea of like not wanting to go out because of fear of it might happen again, or like he's too guilty about it, and they're just doing this to be nice to him, and everyone blames him for it, even though everyone treats him really well and very respectful. Like, his word saves Drizzt in the end, because he was like, no, this drow helped me and saved me. I would be dead without him. So it's very interesting then for say what we would expect is like a Belwar going, no, you should live here and look, I will look after you, stuff like that. But then Drizzt to do it the other way around, going, hey, you should go out, and then Belle was like, oh, fine, but only if you come with me. And like, okay, fine, but at least it's so interesting because like I mean, again, not to say about male loneliness again, but like older men not going out as much, it's something that happens. They maybe.
Why is that? What is that? What is it? You don't have to answer that now. That's a big question for this show.
But I feel like a lot of maybe older folks, like we lose contact with people and stuff like that, and I wonder if men don't necessarily. Again, this is me generalizing completely, but like, unless you have like go walking or go play games or something like that, I think it's actually very hard for men to do that. Whereas women, I think we go chitty chat to anyone. I think I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
I don't know. I find it really interesting that obviously the older you get, sometimes it's the harder to make friends because there's so much energy involved, and I think
it really
the fear of going out and mucking up is quite big.
Yeah, it's much greater, isn't it? For definite, I can believe that. No, that's
absolutely
fair.
Absolutely.
It does build into a better relationship for Drizzt, in the sense that, and it comes at another unfortunate time because they hear then about
Yeah.
about Zach Nafane, and then King Schnicktick,
Schnicktick.
great name, Schnicktick, it's a great name. Basically says you got to leave
Because he's putting everyone in danger as a result, even though he doesn't mean to, and it's just so sad.
and he doesn't want to, and so he does leave, and Belwar though goes with him, and so he now has a friend at least.
Yeah.
And then they make friends with one of the most
no, this is so sad.
It's so much, isn't it? I was like, it's the big one, isn't it? I've talked because I've mentioned him a number of times because we were talking about Pects in the mineral
in mineral things, for Travel Book Club,
the Travel Book Club. So I've mentioned him saying, "Oh, there's one in this, by the way." Not told you the whole bloody story because it's
sad.
It's such a saga of you know what I love about the story about it though is it's really honest story of what I think a D&D world would be like, which is there is some I'll stop walking around it. So there is this character called Clacker, but I can't remember what his actual name was. Did he actually
never find out?
You never find out, do you? That's it. You never find out because he can't speak because he's basically a peck that has been turned into a hook horror, which if you've seen one of those looks like
they are so terrifying
turkey, basically.
Yeah.
And he's awful. And so by this wizard, basically, you call him an evil wizard, but I don't know if it's necessarily. He's not a very nice wizard.
The wizard has the name of a Brister Fendlestick.
Fendlestick.
You're like, that villain, the Fendlestick.
Fendlestick again. Fendlestick. What a Brister. But
Brister.
But it's just it is such a D&D feel of there would be a weird wizard who does live in the Underdark and has a little tower and goes to search for weird things. It's such but it wouldn't. It makes sense in the D&D world. It wouldn't make any sense, I feel, in any other fantasy story. It doesn't feel because it's the weird way that D&D is a role-playing game that you go on these wizards would go into dungeons and start looking around and farting about and it feels right for D&D. And it felt like the offshoot of some Findlestick was the thing you're going for. The adventurers miss out all of this story, but are looking for Fendlestick. They're just going to his thing to get something from him. Kind of what I mean.
They'll do that first bit, but they'll see a human wizard, and then they'll be like, "Oh," the human wizard goes, "I don't like you," and then we'll throw a fireball at you. And in this encounter, Drizzt and Belwar go, "Oh fuck," and then they escape, and that would be the end of that encounter for any other game.
Yes.
And then you come across this creature, this clacker creature, which again you think, oh, you're going to fight. At no point, I think you'd either kill the creature or never, or if take them as a pet, but never ask them who turned you into this creature, who turned this peck into a hooked horror, because. Why would we think like that? But it's because, again, I know this is a story as a player, but Drizzt and Belwar work together to talk to this person, and they find out that this wizard has changed them into this for reasons just to be basically a bit of a dick.
Yeah, he's a bit of a dick, yeah.
And so they're like, no, we're going to right this wrong, which again feels very ominous. That they go to the wizard's tower, they tell him to open up.
Yeah, and he just fucks it up. I did think this was a bit it was I wasn't expecting it.
No.
But then you're like, oh, it happens in movies a lot of the time, in more postmodern movies where it's we're just about to sort the issue. And then the guy says it does the only thing I can think of it's a close, it's actually, I was going to say one thing of Tarantino where it's the bunker, in the bar scene where he says the three and then it all fucks up because he uses the wrong fingers. But actually, it's when in Django Unchained, where he's just about to make the deal and he says, shake my hand. And he's like, I can't shake his hand. And so you're just do you know what I mean? It's the guy because in this, and so then all hell breaks loose and everyone's going to die, basically. And in this situation, it's kind of similar because Brister Fendlestick basically mutters under his breath something not very nice about Clacker.
Yeah, he just says it's similar to oh fucking hell. That's being very dismissive of Clacker.
And then Clacker's goes for him and kills him, which then means that he's stuck now.
Again, it talks about throughout the book this idea of the peck giving in to the hook horror mentality and that fighting again, similar to what Drizzt was doing with the hunter. So they have to keep reminding him, trying to keep it until they can find somewhere to do it. And it's just such a shame. It's at that moment that going, I give in to my rage because, and again, I've been in so many scenarios where you're like, oh, I just give in. I just I slap
Yeah,
them. I do this.
You know you're gonna say the shit. You don't want to say, you're like, fuck it. You know what? This is fucking bullshit.
Yeah, and so unfortunately, Clacker kills the only way that he's able to undo his predicament, and it's so heartbreaking. But again, I do think that it's a moment which has to happen, because then in the final sort of third, we have this, basically, again, they're journeying through the Underdark, and they get attacked by mind flayers and get taken over.
That came out of nowhere when I first read it. I was like, come on.
I feel like, this is the thing, I will want to say this, it feels like I really enjoyed this book, and it made me really excited, but there was at no point was there any references to, there wasn't like, Smurf Nebula, we've got to be careful of, there's been some mind flayer activity happening. We're losing people,
them in the first book, mind flayers, I believe.
Oh, did they? Oh,
I believe so.
I think, I vaguely remember that. But up until that point, because we know Underdark has mind flayers, we do know that. But they get taken over, these three, Belwar, Drizzt, and Clacker, and it seems that's it for them. This is the end.
Yeah,
this is the bad ending in Baldur's Gate. You're like, oh my god, like Drizzt is forever doomed to be a brain massagist, a masseuse. Yes. Belwar is a gladiator, and Clacker is just on a small island being a shepherd with these like sheep-like things. And it's just like, this is it. This is the end of Belwar and Drizzt. Like this is like again, it felt like, because obviously I was talking about like a fairy mound earlier, but like that choose your own adventure. Like, is that it? Are we dead? That's the end of the story? And then suddenly, who should arrive but Zaknathane?
And you're kind of like, well, I guess this works, because he's going to kill them all. Because he's like, undead,
unstoppable. We've had this
unstoppable beast.
We've had this whole thing about him just never stopping. He's constantly after the prey, being pushed and pushed and pushed, killing these mind flayers. But also Guenhwyvar. Guenhwyvar comes and helps. A big cat comes and saves the day, because the Illithid take away the little statuette and go, we'll go to the plane. And like, what is this big cat doing? And then like, well, we're going to leave now. The big cat goes, good, I'm coming with you. And then comes out. So it happens both at the same time. They manage to rescue everyone before like the big sort of penultimate thing of like Zaknathane versus Drizzt. But then obviously Clacker then sacrificing himself a little bit, like going across is about like, come this is where we should go, and then Zaknathane killing Clacker, and it's just, oh my god,
heartbreaking.
I was just like, no, not Clacker, the NPC. It's because it happens so suddenly, because you think, oh, they're getting out. There's had a couple of chapters of them being really sad and like trapped, and they're getting out, and then having this big fight between Drizzt and Zaknathane, and then Matron Malice at the last moment losing her concentration because she's just tired. She's been, forcing this creature, this undead, Zinkala ceremony to keep going. And then Zaknathane finally regains his senses and is able to tell Drizzt, and then just jumps into an acid pit. And it's just like,
it does the Terminator.
Oh, it's so traumatic. It's like,
no.
Oh, it's great. But I think that's the thing. I feel like it's a book of two halves a little bit. It's like, here's the nice Hobbiton town, we're all having it, but you must go on to your own adventure. And that's where I'm like, okay, then the book stops, and then it goes into more awfulness of being in the Underdark. That's the only thing. I felt it felt a book of two halves, which is not a bad thing, but if I was doing it feels like if I was doing the film of this or anything like that, I don't know how much of that first part would be kept in, like a little bit perhaps, but it just feels like, because it talks about like these things, like the ceremony takes like 10 days to do, like everything, it takes like 10 days. It takes a long time, understandably so, but I'm just like going like, no, we need to hurry up, we need to get going. But I enjoyed every bit of the story, but it is a bit like, every time I turned, I was like, who else is going to die? Another nail in the coffin for...
Yeah, I know, exactly. It's not going to get better. It really isn't. It's, that is the feeling. You're just like, it keeps putting someone in a position of like safety, and then really ripping them out from underneath you. You're like, Clacker's story is the prime example of the rest of the book. It's like, oh, we found this person. Thank goodness. We'll take him to we found the wizard. We're going to save him. Oh, no, he's killed him. Crap. All right, we're saved we're going to be saved by the... Oh, Clacker saved us from Zaknathane with his super peck ability. This is great. Boom. We're going to get out there. Clacker, we'll take you to Mensa Baranzan. We'll save you. Don't worry about it.
We'll save you, yeah.
Dagger to the heart. And you're just like, what the fuck?
It's great. I think I would be... If this was like a D&D session, and this is like... I think, oh God, I'd be crying so hard over an NPC called Clacker. Like, it's, I don't know, it's that sort of thing where, again, the three protagonists, like a monster, a misfit, and an exile all together. It just was just so interesting. And then on top of that, you flash back every so often to home. You see Jarl Axel doing his little business meetings. You see like as soon as Malice is sort of like lost control, you know, Bria
Breezer.
steps in, or Breezer steps
just
in.
like, yeah.
Like no more, stabs her, and then there's the whole house gets torn apart because of
then
the
Ban Ray comes rushing at the doors, and you're like,
Ban Ray. We knew this was going to happen. And
I mean, they were, that was it.
And then so basically Breezer and Maya get slaughtered. I think the youngest.
Vienna, who's the one who raised Drizzt, who was the one that was sort of nice to Drizzt.
Yeah.
Out of like nice in the
by the lowest common denominator.
And then there was also the awkward bit with her in the other thing. So
we don't talk about that bit. That was so weird.
Yeah, and then Dinan is taken on the wing of Jarl Axel, so he's still ready for his comeuppance because he has a comeuppance, by the way.
Oh, good. Then she's like a handmaiden now to House Beran as well. So it's all these sort of topsy-turvy things, which it might feel a bit complicated, but for some reason, I really got into I really see these houses about how cruel they are, and like how it's sort of like, again, it's all for each of themselves. Like, because Malice has lost control and clearly no longer has it. Well, everyone's turning on these houses now, because that's the idea at the beginning. It talks about this idea of like, sure, you'll be the ninth house and you'll be going up for them, but you don't have Lol's favor, and only a matter of time till another house turns on you. It's like, there's all this foreshadowing, and it's just, great. And
so good. It is really good.
And then at the end, obviously Clacker's dead, Zaknafane also dead. It gets to a point where Drizzt is like, we'll better part ways. You must go back to Blingdenstone because that's where you belong. And he makes his way up to sort of the surface and sees the sky for the first time. And that's where we sort of end with him and
cool.
Guenhwyvar. It's just like, what a roller coaster to get out of the Underdark, you know? Like,
it really is. And this really, it is. And I felt like when I was reading the book, I was like, I'm quite eager to get out of the Underdark now. I'm very eager to get out.
We need to see what else is out there for sure. Yeah.
Because the Faerun's going to be big, and you feel like literally Drizzt novels go all over Faerun. So it's like, you're kind of like, okay, it is very much a continuation of the first book a lot. And so you are kind of, I was a bit like, I'm quite eager to now like see a bit of the world, see the world.
Yeah.
But it was the journey was worth it to
I think, I feel like it was a good sequel, because sometimes you have like with trilogies and stuff, sometimes the sequel, it can be hit and miss. But it's interesting because obviously I haven't re-listened to Homeland or listened to our discussion of it. I only literally went back into it, but I instantly knew where I was. I remembered what happened. And I just felt like, it was about roughly, the book itself is like 300-ish pages, 400 pages. So it's a lot. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And it's one of those things where I'm keen to read the final one in this trilogy. And like I said, I know there's that sort of thing about the champion of the champions of the hall? No, hall.
It's the Fellowship of the Rings.
Yeah, there you go.
The Champions of the Hall.
I understand why. I kind of don't care about them currently. I kind of want to find out what happens to Drizzt, because I feel like he's been written so well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the final trilogy, and whether or not we want to A, do it, and B, if we want to continue going through these.
I think I will honestly say though, there is. The next one's really good, really interesting, and I think you'll go. Well, I think it's definitely, there are some really good things still in the next trilogy and beyond, I think. But I think it's knowing yourself. You've got evil wizards and an evil wizard, but you've got like a really grimy, scrungy wizard who's crap but kills everyone basically and gets too much power for their own good. Do you know what I mean? So the Weasley wizard who got looked down upon by all the wizards finds something that gives him ultimate power, and it's a really interesting situation of how he's corrupted by power and who's actually in control of the power. Is it him or this other being? You've got that, and then you've got demons that are going to be hunting Drizzt for hundreds of years. You've got there's lots of good things amongst the fact that it is clearly slightly poorer written.
A good start, a first start, as it were. Okay, well, I'll definitely check it out. Because I will say the one thing I've never really touched, and you mentioned it briefly, like as a sort of one-off line, but like the 10 towns in Icewind Dale. I've never looked at Icewind Dale, the Frost Maiden book, the Man of the Frost Maiden. And there's something like, I'm like, I know people talk about it all the time because of Drizzt is quite a big part of it. So I was like, maybe at some point we should look into that primer or something like that from Primer the Frost.
Oh, it's really interesting, and their whole like I don't know, it reminds me of when I don't know if Taylor might be saying this, but how she talked about Iceland.
Oh yeah,
just reminds me of that. It's kind of like what people know of Iceland, like they've got a bloody volcano going off, and they're like, well, we live here. And you're like, yeah, but there's a volcano going off. Yeah, but this is where we are.
This is where we are now.
And you're just like, okay, and it's like that with them, and like there's a freaking thing coming about, and they're like, yeah, but it's where we are. You're like, okay, fine. There's a whole army of barbarians coming after you. Oh yeah, there's a whole army of barbarians, by the way.
What?
We'll enjoy it.
Well, thank you so much, Hamilton, for rereading or re-listening to Exile with me. And yeah, like I said, I'm keen now to finish this series and yeah, to keep going because, like I said to you, I've never really read too much of the sort of D&D stuff. I had a go in the time between our last discussion of a Drizzt novel. I did have a go at the Dragonlance. I think it was at Twilight Dragons or something like that. One of the ones, and. You know what? Again, it'll be an interesting discussion at another point. I would never recommend anyone listen to it, but it's clearly like the Dragonlance ones are clearly like, oh, it is based on somebody's campaign, a D&D campaign, because there's lots of bits where he goes, and then, oh, this happens, and then this happens, and this happens. You're like, oh, these are definitely sessions. This is, and
yes.
again, that's really cool. I really like. I could actually see that, but it's not as interesting as what I felt with Drizzt novels. So yeah, no, thank you very much, Hamilton. Where can we find you? What are you doing on the internet? What socials are you on, my friend?
Okay, yeah. You can find me as Fueled by Chaos or at Fueled_Chaos or at Fueled Chaos pretty much everywhere now. Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, YouTube.
All the socials except the rubbish socials. One. Yes.
The rubbish one, which don't talk about.
No.
Yeah, on my YouTube channel, like I said, I've got a new kit bash out, which was there's a model set that you can get, which is like in dollars is the more extreme version. It's like $100. It's like it's $110, so it's what £65 for 3 horsies, as I call it, or you can buy, which are they're like the elite horsies, and then you could buy the standard horsies, 5 of them for £40. Well, 37. Well, yeah, 42.50 or whatever.
I always want more horsies for my buck. So.
I think I got them at 37.50 when I got them originally. So you can get 5 for pretty much half the price if you get 3, but just because they're less fancy. So what I did is I'm not paying that money. I went and ripped the heads off them and of 3 of them.
Not the horsies, Clopsy.
Yeah, the horsey, Clopsy. Yeah, Clopsy and Clipsy and Sugar. And Buttercup, and I stuck double heads together, and I made tentacle heads, and I ripped the head off a wolf and put it on one, and gave them weird tails and stuff like that. Made them pretty horrific.
I don't like horror, Hamilton. 2023.
Well, yeah, exactly. I know. It's just you just rubbed off me too much. It's just ruined now. And so so I did that. So you can go watch me do that on there. That's out at the moment, and there's a couple more things coming out for the competition. And now I'm doing rap punk thingies at the moment. So yeah, there's all that. But that's enough about me. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Where are we?
What are we doing? We're doing DM's book club. Why are we doing it? I don't know. It's just nice to talk about books that we've read. Where are we? I am so glad you asked. I'm Fiona. I do What Am I Rolling, which is a twice-monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast. As always, it is going fairly well. Interviews with game designers are coming out. Hopefully some more actual plays and stuff. We, again, at time of release, the Mega Game episode just went out with me talking to the wonderful Grant Howitt, obviously not related, and Matt Sanders from Rowan Rook and Descartes about running mega games based on TTRPGs. And it was just a very, very wonderful experience. And so, yeah, please go listen to that. I thought that was really good. It's very different to normally like, how's your game? What do you do for your game? It's like, how do you get your game and then train it, make it into like a immersive experience that you can't really create anywhere else but at a convention. So yeah, highly recommend checking that out. I also do Too Long Didn't Read streams every so often when I remember to do them. I've been doing a couple last couple of weeks. I did recently. The one I was going to recommend to you, Hamilton, because I don't know how much of a Terry Pratchett fan you are, but I was looking at
I saw you had that, and I was sorry that I missed it. I couldn't join it, but yes, there's a new role-playing game, isn't there?
Yeah, the new Discworld Quick Start from Modiphius came out. They had the big Kickstarter, and it's all finished now, etc. But we looked at the Quick Start, and you know what? I'm going to talk about it here quickly because I think it's very interesting. Is that firstly they insist that there is no combat. which I'm like, cool. It makes sense because obviously Discworld is that sort of, obviously, if you know Terry Pratchett, same sort of thing like, Douglas Adams, that sort of sly humor, with a little bit more detail than necessary, but it's all a little bit sarcastic, a little bit like, well, that's how it is on this, very interesting world. I will say I'm not a massive sorry, I say I'm not a fan of Terry Pratchett. I've not read many of the books. I really like his writing, the ones I have read. But the system itself, it's basically you versus the GM in terms of like you have your sheet with no stats on it, no numbers or anything like that. You have just like a list of things, like say you're part of the Watch and you're a troll and you grew up with dwarves or something like that, and you'd be like, okay, for this particular task, well. You want me to throw a boulder? Oh, I'm a troll, so I've got really big strength, so I can throw this boulder. And you're like, okay, I think, yes, that makes sense. You get a D10 to roll the boulder, and you have D6, D4, D6, D10, D12s. And the more, like, way you justify it, like using your stuff, the higher the die value you roll.
Yeah.
And then you roll against I'm going to say this wrong. Is it the Naravitium dice, which is what the GM rolls, which is a D8, and whoever is highest succeeds essentially. So I like the idea: the better you are, the bigger the die value
that's
you have.
What I've actually got in Rat Punk, which is really weird. That's my leveling up system. Is that you start level 1 with a D4, and then level 2 D6, level 3
you
D8,
advance the thing. Yeah. That's all it is, and I quite like it. And then you have like consequences and stuff depending on all that sort of thing, and bits of luck. But it's just all it is just pure narrative. It's that you using your sheet and going, we've all been there in those D&D games. Go, can I use animal handling to persuade this, and this? It's like, if I have X, can I do Y? And you know what? I really love that it plays into that because it feels very apt for the world. So I'd recommend checking it out. I've not read through the actual adventure module, but it seems pretty straightforward and stuff. And just a little bit of charming stuff. So it's something different, especially from Modiphius, that's known for like the 2D20 system, which is for me a little bit too convoluted. It's fine, but it's like they're known for like adding lots of dice together, where this is just like story, and then which way does the story go? Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, that sounds cool. I will check that out. I'm same with you. I didn't read them as a kid because I was put off by the covers, but
dreadful. I
hate those covers. They really put me off. But the new ones are really good.
Yeah, the new one's brilliant.
And so I've read Men at Arms, and I've read the second one, I've read Guards.
I've read Guards. Yeah, Guards. Well, if you've read Guards, then you'll understand the quick start. And I will say this: you don't need to be a fan of Discord. You don't need to read. Obviously, there's mentions in it that will be like, oh, that's so and so. If you read Guards, you'll absolutely understand the module. I think that's maybe one of the most popular books because there's a lot of references to Guards in it.
Yeah, I imagine it is. Because they've also made TV programs about that as well.
Yeah.
Talking about different dice mechanics, I've been reading for Blood Runners, some Powered by the Apocalypse stuff, and I was going back to that. And that is an interesting dice mechanic system. I'm quite a big fan. It's 2d6, isn't it? Which is quite old fashioned, but I quite like it. Yeah. I'm kind of enjoying it, even though I really wanted to use d12s because I like the dice.
D12s are underrated, as we know.
So good. They are the best. Which is the Year Zero, because I was looking at Year Zero engine as well.
The D6s, yeah.
But Year Zero is d12s, isn't it? Year Zero is
Year Zero engine pulls the D6s. The Free League stuff you're talking about?
Free League. Oh, what's the one? So okay, that's not what I meant then. I thought that's what I was talking about. But the one ring system.
Oh, the one ring does. Yeah, yes, one ring does use D12, which
I assumed was Year Zero. Sorry, but I was reading that.
That's fine, because it goes back nicely into what we were talking about just now. It's because as we're recording, Free League Lord of the Rings is now on a fifth edition. It's on D&D Beyond. They've made some agreements.
I just saw that as well.
That's such a big deal. Like I
saw
was
that came off my feed. I was like, D&D Wizards, and it was showing Lord of the Rings stuff, and I was like, no way. No way.
So, hey, I tell you what, and this is the thing we've always talked about. Like, obviously, we absolutely love lots of different RPG systems. You and I have talked about loads of different systems, including the One Ring, and the fact that they've made a fifth edition and it's just slotted in to do big collaborations and go on to D&D Beyond with Wizards. Incredible. I mean, like, you know what? I think it's really good for Free League. Do I agree with it? No, but I think that's such a big thing for.
Well, because of them, as in the fact that giving D&D Wizards is not really a good idea.
No, but also like they've always been deliberately like, oh well, this is also fifth edition, so you can play, and it gets more people to play that sort of stuff. I know people will be looking for Lord of the Rings, but I think that opens a lot for, say, Symbaroum. So that system as well uses I think it's the Year Zero engine, but also they did a fifth edition version of that. So I'm sure that will come up in a couple of years as well. So, you know what? kudos to them.
I mean,
it's one of those things where it's like kudos, but yeah.
I mean, I wonder. I bet Lord of the Rings makes a heck lot of money for freely because it makes Games Workshop a heck lot of money. It was even like it's famously known now in the Warhammer setting that the reason that Warhammer Fantasy really died is because they got the rights to Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings became the second biggest game they did. So it was Warhammer 40k and Lord of the Rings, and so Warhammer Fantasy was like third, and they were like, "Well, this is just crap. No one's buying anything." So that's why they deleted it and made
that's
Age
so
of Sigmar.
upsetting. Oh, that's so upsetting, though.
But it's because they say Lord of the Rings actually. I've not played it, but they say it is the best rule system because they really actually tried.
Yeah,
it's not. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I'm interested to. I've not because I'm gonna have a look at it because I've not looked at the 5th edition version. I've obviously looked at. I've got the One Ring system.
Yeah, we got the One Ring. Yeah.
Is it though the same sort of timeline? Twilight of the is it that sort of era? Or
it's exactly the same stuff. They just don't use any of the rule system, and it is just like they put the D&D in it and taken out what the actual system is. But they use stuff like the corruption points and all that sort of thing. I think as well. Like
and they have fellowship phases.
Yeah, they still have that stuff, so you can fit it in. But it is just purely that the D20.
Who can I look at stat blocks off really quickly? Let's have a look. Evil men.
Terrible.
The White King. Let's have a look. Let's see what the White King.
Go for it.
Is medium undead.
Classic.
What would you say challenge rating for the White King?
White King. 10?
Yeah, 5.
Oh, okay. I just thinking like because I know combat in the One Ring is you shouldn't do it, so that's why I'm just like going like no.
Yeah, you think it'd be bigger, wouldn't you? Well, there you go. That's cool though. It's great to see. I mean, I feel like we probably should do one of the Grim Hollow ones. Do you know what I mean, or something, or the Illrigger revised.
The Illrigger. That's MCDM. The Night of Hell stuff coming up. Yeah, that's. I mean, who knows? There's more and more stuff every single bloody day. I look and I go, I don't have time to read this stuff. Like even Humblewood, the one with the owls, the birds that you can play as well, is probably something. Yeah, because they've got some unique classes as well.
What's interesting though is like the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount and stuff like that is done in the same font as the D&D stuff, and then all these other ones are given their own. Like,
I guess because they work together with the D&D. Yeah, I think it was already the collaboration. But like even like Tal'Dorei Reborn is now on D&D Beyond, and that's So like it's almost becoming like a drive for RPG in a way. It's sort of slowly sort of getting there. Or DM's Guild.
What do you think Grog Strongjaw's challenge rating is?
Let's go 16.
18.
Ooh.
Keyleth.
Oh, she's Druids. Oh, it's like 20 or something.
She's only 18 as well.
What? No.
They're all 18.
No.
Oh, no, they're not all 18. That's ridiculous.
I was going to say, Druids, Keyleth, massive, like, overpowered
Pike,
Druid.
17. Oh. Pike.
What Pike?
Scanlan's only 15.
Oh, well, that's bards for you, isn't it? Anyway, we can look at this in our own time. We should let our listeners go, should we not?
Champion. Oh, no, sorry. Okay. Bax is 21. But he's the champion of Ravens.
Because, he's a bloody rogue, isn't he? So,
it's because they're the best. So we'll leave it there.
We'll leave it there. Yeah, I'm glad you got your little bit about rogues out.
Yeah, it's fine. Even though Keyleth is probably the best character, should be the best character.
Absolutely, yeah.
100%.
All right, friends. Well, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the DM's Book Club. But until then, folks, we will
see you on the flip side.
Bye.